A hero of days long gone, he had been considered a mere fancy of Dwarven folklore. Welcome to Raid Story Legends with me, LeilaFox. Hi there, welcome to LeilaFoxNation. I am LeilaFox. This is my Raid Story Legends YouTube series. This is a series I do every week that shares some lore with you from our favorite champs from the Raid Shadow Legends universe. Today's story is going to be for Tormin the Cold. But before we get into his story, I want to share with you some lore from the Dwarven faction as a whole. If you did not know, faction lore is actually in the game. What you do is you end up going to the faction that you want to see and you end up clicking on the information button. I show this live on stream pretty often because people don't realize this is in here. So for the dwarves as a whole, masters of hammer and axe, the dwarves stood firm, thwarting the invading waves of Siroth's minions as they attacked their homes deep beneath the mountains of Teleria. Now, to quench their thirst for vengeance, the dwarves march onto the surface to take back in blood and gold what is rightfully theirs. And the lore for the dwarves is so very interesting because I've also shared lore for other dwarves such as Trunda. And it seems like there's always this common theme that dwarves, again being masters of hammer and axe, a lot of them are blacksmiths, for example. And due to necessity, they end up becoming warriors and they end up creating legends for themselves. And you're going to find with Tormin the Cold, his story also fits in really well with this. Here is Tormin's story, and I hope you enjoy. There are many songs of Tormin the King's Hammer, Tormin Orcsbane, Tormin the Smith, of his deeds and his bravery, of his cunning and wit, and of his loyalty. A hero of days long gone, he had been considered a mere fancy of Dwarven folklore by some skeptical scholars, a generalized character with traits taken from several historical figures, which would explain a long list of titles. But, in truth, Tormin indeed existed, and the tales of his adventures often had a seed of truth in them. Born to a humble blacksmith, as is so very common among the children of stone, who revere the artistry of crafting metal, Tormin had begun learning the craft from the day he was strong enough to hold a hammer. He was talented and strong, though hot-blooded, and oft found himself at odds with others. It was one such feud that led to Tormin injuring a rival smith's apprentice and being taken by Jarl's guards. His fate might have been bleak, were not for frequent orc raids that troubled the Jarl's domain at the time. Every able-bodied warrior could be of use against the raiders, and thus Tormin found himself faced with a choice: be imprisoned for his crimes, or be conscripted into the militia. He had chosen the latter. The saga goes on to describe Tormin's service to the Jarl, which lasted a decade, and saw him rise from a mere foot soldier to a trusted sergeant. He is said to have defended a narrow bridge across a cavern chasm alone, turning aside scores of orcish warriors. Several orc camps were raided and razed to the ground, and bandits who led the raid slain by the Dwarven scouts under his command. His bravery had been enough to get him noticed by the Jarl, and when the king gathered an army to march alongside his human allies, Tormin too was called upon. It was a stroke of luck, perhaps, that saw Tormin catch the king's eye when he alone survived a bloody battle against the undead and returned to the bulk of the army with a warning that would prove crucial to securing victory. Such resilience and determination were worthy of a true dwarf, and Tormin was taken into the king's own service. A particularly beloved tale speaks of Tormin being taken prisoner by Jotuns, a race of giants hailing from the mountains of despair, and using his cunning to escape. He had convinced the Jotun chieftain that he could craft a weapon worthy of such an illustrious leader, if given tools and material to work with. The chieftain, driven by his lust for power and well aware of the fabled smithing talents of the dwarves, agreed. Tormin remained true to his word and used all he had been given to craft a magical hammer of impressive power. Though rather than gift it to the Jotuns, he had turned it upon them instead. The magic of Rime Fire, as Tormin had dubbed his weapon, was unleashed and allowed him to fell upon foes, baffling the rest and securing his escape. He was hailed a hero once more when he returned home, Rhinefire in hand, and tales of adventure inspired countless songs praising dwarven ingenuity and mocking the greed of the Jotun chieftain. Tormin himself went on to serve the king for decades until his sudden disappearance far in the frozen north of Teleria. No one knows exactly what he was doing there, nor what happened. Some say Tormin was betrayed, left for dead in a pool of his own freezing blood. He swore to seek justice and traded his soul to a malefic winter spirit that dwelled in the icy peaks of the Winterlands. Others maintain that Tormin hunted down a powerful lich lord, but was mortally wounded. Only the intervention of Sir Nicholas allowed the dwarven warrior to survive, though the cost was steep. Some even denied Tormin's survival at all, claiming he had perished in the icy wastes, far, far away from mortal eyes, and that neither his remains nor his mighty weapon may ever be recovered. Yet this old saga had been given new life recently, when scouts returned, terrified and frostbitten, from their mission beyond the Mountain King realm. They spoke of a terrible blizzard that enveloped their party and of a lone dwarf who walked through that storm unharmed, silent and clad in frozen armor. He led the scouts down from the treacherous mountain into valleys below, yet did not share a single word with them. Most importantly, the stranger wielded a mighty warhammer of silver and ice. Though he had disappeared without a trace when the task was done, this mysterious benefactor had caught the attention of the dwarven monarch and knew better equipped parties are already being prepared to venture north and bring their long-lost brother back into the fold. So this is the story for Tormin the Cold. I find this one so intriguing because this is one of the very few stories I have shared where it seems like they really delve into the folklore and the lore of the faction, because in this case they actually talk about how there's rumors that Tormin doesn't exist or that he does, and there's all these many different stories. It's so interesting how a lot of times folklore and stories become changed as the stories get shared centuries and centuries beyond, that you never really know what this champion really was initially to begin with. And I find that so interesting that in this case, it's a bit torn on whether he existed or not. And if he did, which of these stories are true? Is he really as mighty as the stories say? And I really, really hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to sharing more of these Raid Story Legends with you. I would love to hear your comments and your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think of the story for Tormin the Cold. Do you love it? Does it answer some questions for you? Is he one of your favorite champs in Raid and now you love knowing a backstory for him? I would love to know your feedback in your comments, and thank you again so much for watching. I look forward to sharing more stories with you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our video, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/LeilaFoxNation 4 days a week, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on by and be part of our community, and we'll see you there.